braided rivers define the countryside and the culture of Bangladesh. They bring life-giving water, flooding fields to fertilize the soil every year. They provide flowing roadway to thousands of watercraft transporting food, livestock, equipment and people. In a country 3 times more densely populated than India, Bangladesh waterways are key to its agricultural output and productivity. But with the gift of water comes the challenge of living with its temper. Every year, the rivers overtake their banks, flooding fields and homes across the country. Sometimes, floods far exceed expectations, destroying thousands of homes, crumbling infrastructure. These are the disasters you hear about on the news, read about in the paper. They are dramatic. They take lives. And the international community responds with professional support and financial donations. But there is another more complex and some would argue more damaging challenge of living with a temperamental river system: erosion.
এই তো নদীর খেলা সকাল বেলা আমি ভাই ফকির সন্ধ্যা বেলা ও ভাই ফকির সন্ধ্যা বেলা এই তো নদীর খেলা সেই নদীর ধারে কোন ভরসায় ঘুমি যাচ্ছিলি ওরে বেভুল ঘুমি যাচ্ছিলি সুখের বাসায় যখন ধরল ভাঙন পেলি নে তুই পারে যাবার ভেলা যখন ধরল ভাঙন পেলি নে তুই পারে যাবার ভেলা এই তো নদীর খেলা এ কুল ভাঙে ও কুল গড়ে এই তো নদীর খেলা
Sharif Kafi has been working on river erosion issues in Bangladesh for more than a decade.
On an average, it is almost 500,000 people become homeless due to river erosion in this country every year. And out of these 500,000 people, there are some people, nearly 50%, 250,000 people, they are actually well-off people. Maybe they are losing their land and their home due to river erosion, but they have some other assets, other resources somewhere else that helps them to get rehabilitated on their own. But there are the rest 250,000 people who don't have any resource to survive. There is no other resource to bank on. So they really become the floating people, homeless in absolute term.
River erosion is nothing new in Bangladesh. Rivers change course yearly, redefining their path by devouring land.
River erosion can be dramatic when at the beginning of the rainy season, the monsoon season, when the rivers are low and maybe there is low tide in the Bay of Bengal, so there are relatively empty channels available for any storm water coming, torrential rain in the Himalayan foothills or further upstream in India. When that heavy water comes through an empty river channel, then it comes through at a much faster rate, and that can cause a lot of damage just because of the speed of the water hitting banks and particularly at bends in the river and so on. So it is not only when there is severe flooding, when the rivers burst their banks,
It is a silent and insidious disaster. It doesn't draw big headlines or international attention, but it affects hundreds of thousands of people every year.
সব আছিল বাগান আছিল আম গাছ আছিল সুপারি গাছ আছিল পালে গরু আছিল তিনখান লাউ আছিল সব সকার এক খাবারে নিজে নিয়ে এই জন্য পথের ফহিনী হইছি
আপনার ছেলে মেয়ে কোথায়
জামাই বাড়ি এক মেয়ে এক ছেলে সাল ভরে দিছি মেয়ে জামাইরে দিছি আমার খালি খাসা আমি অদমা পড়ে লইছি
Addressing needs of villagers who have lost their homes and livelihoods to river erosion is an incredibly difficult task.
People are often very much responsive to the onslaught disasters, not this kind of slow creeping disasters. We need to raise awareness among people that they need to be equally responsive to the creeping disasters like river erosion.
Some families who lose their home to river erosion try to rebuild their life nearby. With the river pulling land away from the footings of their homes, they pack their belongings, collapse their houses and move a little farther away in an attempt to re-establish themselves on their own land. In the majority of cases, this means they will move again and again as the river changes course, eating land at its edges. Eventually, the family is left with nowhere to go. They live a refugee's life on river embankments. Their health slowly deteriorating due to a lack of food and clean water.
কোন সমঝা আমরা উঠা দেব আমরা খার জমিতে আমরা আইসা রইছি ভাঙ্গাচুরা এজন্য আমরা আপনাকে একটু জানাইতেছি আর জিনিসগুলো আমরা যে কোথায় যাব সে জায়গা আমাদের সম্পদ নাই নদীর কূলে ভাসতাইছে
They move illegally to government land or abandoned buildings. If they are not forced to leave, they remain scraping out a living but not being counted in population surveys. This means they will have limited or no access to schools, medical support or clean water. About half the people made landless by river erosion move from their villages looking for work. They quickly disappear into the swelling population of the cities.
জমিন আছিল আমরা আবাদ করে খাইতাম জমিনের মধ্যে সেই জমিন ভাঙে দেওয়ার পরে আমরা একজন একখান জায়গায় জায়গায় গেছি গে সরকারে কে কারো জায়গা দিছে আমরা জায়গা পাইনি কে আমরা ঢাকা চলে আসছি
Here, in a country crumbling under the weight of unemployment, they rarely find sustainable work. Some join the ranks of rickshaw pullers, known locally as wallers, sacrificing their health to serious pollution. Others work as day laborers.
আমগো নদী ভেঙ্গলে আছে সব কিছু জিনিসপত্র বাঁচাইতে পারিনি গাছ সুইদা ভাঙ্গা সব কইরা সব পানি ভিতরে বাইসে আছে ঢাকায় মা বাবার লিয়ে এখানে থাকে এখন আমি রিকশা চালাই
But those who find this type of work are the lucky ones. Many others find no work and resort to begging, selling drugs or stealing. They live in crowded, disease-ridden slums, less than human conditions. Slums are a breeding ground for disease and death. Children spend their days playing in sewer-polluted water and infant and child mortality rates climb.
If you go to certain slums in Dhaka city, you see that many of the slums, they do harbor many of the crime activities. As the government says, somewhat it is true, but it has developed in a way because there was no alternative for their rehabilitation in the country. Had there been any alternative for them for rehabilitation, might be they would not get into these criminal activities.
When erosion takes away land, it also steals futures. It starts with a loss of land, then a loss of place in society, then a loss of food and personal security. And it all adds up to a social disorder that breeds instability, crime and abuse. But what can be done about it?
It's easier to deal with the short-term humanitarian needs and the rehabilitation needs of people who actually have land to go back to.
When erosion occurs, whether over a matter of days or overnight, affected people are pushed into a crisis. When the family has no land or limited money, relief by way of supplementary food and medical support gives them a chance to make decisions about how they'll use their meager resources to recover. When a family needs to move, longer-term rehabilitative support is required. Job retraining, employment creation, and resettlement housing projects help those affected start again. The Bangladesh Red Crescent, with the support of the International Federation, the worldwide network of Red Cross and Red Crescent societies, and the international community, provides emergency food relief, medical support, and develops a limited number of resettlement projects across the country. One of the most important elements in providing this assistance is community-based disaster preparedness, education to help the community help itself.
When this contingency planning is made, this whole community is involved. So they know what is to be done, where to go, how to save, fund or materials to be used after the disaster.
Planning is key to making a life along the riverbanks of Bangladesh. So is having access to assistance when plans fail. Loss of land through erosion, loss of place in society is at the root of many humanitarian issues being addressed by governments, relief and development agencies. Recognizing the impact of this silent disaster, providing options to people who have little else, and developing a coordinated approach. These steps will change the course for people who have lost their homes and livelihoods to the river.
যখন ধরল ভাঙন পেলিনে তুই পারে যাবার ভেলা যখন ধরল ভাঙন পেলিনে তুই পারে যাবার ভেলা এই তো নদীর খেলা